So what I have here for you today is black-green midrange, or Golgari midrange. So this is refreshing to see a black-green deck back on kind of on top of the metagame almost. I mean, not fully on top. Like I wouldn't say this is the best deck in Standard right now, but we're seeing a number of different black-green variants do well in the format. So we used to see Winding Constrictor black-green decks. That's kind of the most recent form of this deck in our mind. But with that card gone, this has transitioned to more of a value style deck. Card advantage creatures and planeswalkers and removal. The mana base is nothing crazy, just a bunch of black-green lands alongside your overgrown. You got your overgrown tomb, you got your woodland cemetery, and then basics. And so those are the lands that we have to work with. There's really no debate there. Llanowar Elves is that creature acceleration that is very important in the format. It's a card that draws you to green because of the fact it's the best acceleration in Standard. And yeah, it's a card you always want to see in your opener. We've got a bunch of explore creatures, which can be a form of card advantage and just high power threats for their mana cost in Merfolk Branchwalker and your Jadelight Ranger. Cast down, flexible removal can be annoying because there are a decent amount of legendary threats in the format, but overall, it's what we have to work with. And then we have Assassin's Trophy as well, which Assassin's Trophy, the most versatile removal spell, not only in Guilds of Ravnica, possibly in the history of Magic, just because of what it can do for the mana cost. It does give your opponent an extra land, though, so that can be quite a big downside. It's not a card you really want to be casting on turn 2, but it allows you to have that flexibility within a game. And then District Guide, one of value creature, and then Plaguecrafter can be pretty good. It does answer planeswalkers or creatures. But then we have our top end stuff. So Ravenous Chupacabra, easy 2-for-1, right? You play it, you kill a creature. There's a lot of creatures in this format. Vraska Golgari Queen, this is possibly my favorite card in Standard right now, in that you can use it to sacrifice lands. It can sacrifice your creatures randomly, whichever creature you might want to just get rid of, whether it's a Merfolk Branchwalker or a Llanowar Elves, or maybe you're chaining these Golgari Findbrokers. And then this Vraska can also get rid of your opponent's creatures. The Findbrokers, though, provide this never-ending value stream. If you draw one, you can maybe get something back, then maybe it dies, you draw a second one, you now are getting that Findbroker that died back, and it's a never-ending stream, and it's really a powerful card. Upon first impression, it didn't seem like a card that would be a mainstay in Standard, but it can get back any permanent. So that includes Planeswalkers, it includes Deadweights in the sideboard. It includes the Eldest Reborn, which we see here as another value card. Vivian Reed has really impressed me. All the modes have been relevant. The fact that it can get rid of artifacts, enchantments, and flyers is a big part of that minus. The minus is actually quite good. And Carnage Tyrant, it's kind of like just splitting hairs here in terms of which big spell we want, but it's another great card against some of the control decks. And then Vraska Relic Seeker as the other Vraska, and the flexibility that one provides in what it can do as well. So in the sideboard, the Duresses for control, Deadweights, and Golden Demise and Plague Mare, those are all cards against the very aggressive creature-based decks. The Wildgrowth Walker and the Deathgorge Scavengers also kind of for the red decks, and then some more stuff for the control matchup. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot to choose from here in the black-green colors, and the fact is that sideboards right now, because the format has shrunk a little bit, are not as strong in general, but this black-green sideboard is quite good. We have a lot of different options. So this is what one of the Golgari mid-range decks looks like. And stay tuned for the games. There's some really interesting games to come here against some decks that I was not expecting to play against. So yeah, should be fun. So we are gonna get to be on the play, and we have a turn 1 Elves. So turn 1 Llanowar Elves into a Branch Walker is pretty much as good as we can hope for with our opener. So yep, definitely gonna keep this one. And we'll see what we're going to be exploring next turn. Looks like potentially some sort of a similar deck to ours, as we see an Overgrown Tomb there. We drew a Findbroker, which means that we can potentially explore into a permanent that we might want to mill and then bring back with the Findbroker. But it's an Assassin's Trophy. I think we want lands here. So I'm going to put that in the graveyard so that we can try to hit the Eldest, Reborn, and Vraska on time. We only have one more land drop in hand, so that could end up being pretty important. We don't know what threats our opponent's going to deploy, but Assassin's Trophy is one of those cards that you don't love to play on turn 2 or 3. Just because you're going to give your opponent some additional lands to work with. So Memorial to Folly is what our opponent found off of that Branch Walker. And the way this lines up, our opponent's Branch Walker can trade with ours. We could get it back with the Findbroker. So I think we just go for that. I mean, it's not the best trade in the world for us. We could also simply not play the Findbroker yet. It is pretty great, but I think we just get it into play. The 3/4 body is pretty nice, and the fact is that we have a lot of late game with our 2 big spells already. Our opponent's pretty likely to play a creature here that we can simply use the Eldest Reborn to get rid of. And then we've already got this Findbroker getting in there. Alright, so despite milling that earlier Assassin's Trophy, we found another one, so it's all good. And pretty much everything going according to plan so far. We'll likely have a couple choices in terms of what to actually return there with our Eldest Reborn, because it will be going into that 3rd chapter soon. So our opponent just passed the turn. Have to wonder what that's all about. Discarded a Swamp. Well, we don't immediately have the 6 mana for Vraska, so I think we just attack in there for 4. You know, that cast down is not the end of the world, because we can bring that Findbroker back potentially with the Eldest Reborn. And now here's the same Merfolk Branchwalker again. Ravenous Chupacabra. Well, I'm going to put that in the graveyard. It kind of should signal to our opponent, like, what's going on here. He's putting a Ravenous Chupacabra in his graveyard. But we're looking for that to be able to land our Vraska Relic Seeker. And considering we already have other removal spells in hand, it's just not a card we actually want at this point. So it looked like that time our opponent did find 2 lands off of their Jade Light Ranger. And I'm going to go ahead and get our Findbroker back. And so now we can do the trick of getting the Eldest Reborn back with the Findbroker. And we drew the land, so we can also play. We have a choice between Vraska or the Eldest Reborn. I think I'm going to go with... Well, that's a good question. What to go with here? We'll go with the Eldest Reborn. And the reason why is that pretty much the only way to answer these threats in the mirror matchup is with an Assassin's Trophy. And so we would rather our opponent use an Assassin's Trophy on the Eldest Reborn and then get to land the Vraska. And this means we're 1 turn closer to once again doing that whole trick with the Findbroker. Here's a Finality. Okay, that was not a card I was expecting, which now I kind of regret not playing the Vraska because we only have 5 mana. Alright, well, better lucky than good sometimes. There's the 6 lands, so I am just going to dump Vraska right into play. Go ahead and tick her up. And this is a pretty rough spot for our opponent. Once again, we can do that, get our Findbroker back with the Eldest Reborn, and we can just continue this never-ending chain of value that is pretty difficult to disrupt. And our opponent does have their own Vraska. I don't anticipate it's going to be good enough here. In fact, well, there is that's smart. That is smart. Our opponent used the minus ability on the Vraska. So that does make this a game, because now our Eldest Reborn is gone, which was one of our, if not our single most important card on the battlefield. We do have this Assassin's Trophy. I think I'm just going to use that on the Vraska. That allows us to continue directly attacking our opponent. And besides that, we can't actually kill the Vraska with our creatures this turn. So keep in mind, right now our Vraska is on 10 loyalty, which means that we can go minus 10 and make our opponent's life total 1 life. If our opponent doesn't get rid of our Vraska, that's what's going to happen, and it looks like our opponent has seen enough of this one. So similar matchup here. We don't want to get too fancy in terms of sideboarding. We want our card advantage, like our planeswalkers, so I do like Vivian Reed. And Carnage Tyrant is pretty good. It can get hit with the Eldest Reborn, but it's just a big threat that's tough to answer. So those are the two cards that I think we should definitely be looking at for bringing in. And then Vraska's Contempt is another one worth considering. I'm okay with shaving a little bit on Assassin's Trophy. Cast Down is also not great. It's just not a matchup where you're trying to like kill your opponent's like explore creatures. So we don't really need to be doing that. Plaguecrafter can be good if you get a Planeswalker with it, but sometimes you're not able to do that. So we'll cut one of those. And Duress is an interesting card in the matchup, but there's not that many spells. Well, I'll bring in one Duress, why not? We don't know the exact list that our opponent's on, so we don't know the amount of creatures that our opponent has. But Duress, that information that it provides is pretty important. Now, you never want to draw two, right? So it may seem weird that I boarded in one copy of Duress, because when you have four of something in the sideboard and you bring in only one, it's kind of like, what? Why are you doing that? Well, we don't want to draw two. We don't know if it's going to be that great. It's just kind of a hedge. So did keep this on the back of having the explore creatures, and in hopes that those can find us our lands that we're looking for, which is normally a pretty safe bet, considering explore lets you go multiple cards deeper into your deck, and there you go. There's an Overgrown Tomb. So things are proceeding according to plan, other than the fact that we are still on the draw. There's an Assassin's Trophy, 2 Assassin's Trophies. Okay, sorry, not 2 Assassin's Trophies. The same Assassin's Trophy, rather. Our opponent has elected to keep that Assassin's Trophy, so now we know that that's a card that we're going to have to fight through. And we have a decision which Explorer creature to play here. I think I like going with the more expensive one, the Jadelight Ranger. Now, it's possible that we get 2 lands and we're forced to discard a card from our hand. But at the same time, okay, it's more likely to be 3 power now. We did get those 2 lands. So we're kind of now a little bit flooded. We just don't need all of our lands anymore. So we can discard 1. We've already got 6. And now here's a decision in terms of what to do about, do we want to block this this Jadelight Ranger? And I think we do. Our creatures just aren't as big as our opponents, and we don't want to. We're going to need to get this card off the board. We don't have an early removal spell for it. Looks like our opponent does have a cast down though, so you know, it's not the end of the world. If our opponent's using their turn to play a cast down, we can live with that. And we can hope that this Merfolk Branch Walker becomes a 3/2, which it's going to be. I'm going to keep that Assassin's Trophy on top of our library. You never know when it might come in handy. And here's a critical turn to see if our opponent has a big threat to land or not. Certainly, this trade seems fine. It's possible that our opponent has a Findbroker. which would incentivize the trade, but nothing immediate there. So we know about the Assassin's Trophy. There's not a whole lot we can do about it. I think we want to go ahead and get this Vivian Reed on the board. We'll get an activation out of it, and then if our opponent does hit it with an Assassin's Trophy, you know, it's too bad, but that kind of stuff does happen. Only a Llanowar Elves, so not the creature we were looking for per se. But we have these two Vraskas, so we're kind of, you know, the Assassin's Trophy can also kill a Vraska. And in some ways, Vraska is the more powerful of our Planeswalkers. Vraska, Relic Seeker. Of course, we do have both. Looks like our opponent also boarded Indress. That is interesting. Well, it's pretty good here. It's going to likely take one of our Vraskas, but we still have one left. No, it's going to go for this Assassin's Trophy. So our opponent may be banking to play one of their own big threats. But I see no good reason not to jam. And having multiple creatures gives us insurance against cards like Plaguecrafter and the Eldest Reborn, trying to answer our Planeswalker that way. Okay, so our opponent does have their own Vraska. But we have this Plaguecrafter, which is going to be quite good here. So what we can do is we can get rid of this pirate. And then we'll go ahead and send these creatures at our opponent, because we are going to play this Plaguecrafter, which does mean our opponent's going to have to sacrifice their Vraska. This card goes after Planeswalkers as well. I think I'm going to get rid of the Llanowar Elves. That the mana, we have plenty of mana to work with at this point. Let's keep that Jade Light Ranger. And the board's looking good. Exactly how we drew it up. We're not as close to ultimating our Vraska, but that's probably not that important. Sure. I think we're fine with letting our opponent trade off this Ravenous Chupacabra, so I'm just going to attack in. Looks like they're not going to. Yes, we don't need that Findbroker, but it's one of the best cards to have access to in late game situations like this. It's just absurd value when you have this much mana and you have a Golgari Findbroker and you're this ahead on board. Our opponent correctly knows that they're beat. This time we're on the draw, but the hand is good. So, and it looks like our opponent did have to mulligan to 6, but they kept their 6. We're going to have to take 2 here most likely from our Overgrown Tomb. And it looks like we are playing against a Merfolk deck. Or at least we see a Mistcloaked Herald, so that definitely narrows down what our opponent could possibly be playing. Even though it's an aggressive deck that we're up against, I do still think we want to take the damage here, just to get that Llanowar Elf onto the battlefield. Llanowar Elves just being the key mana ramp creature in the deck, and in many ways in Standard as a whole. Here's Curious Obsession. So this is a pretty brutal combo. We do have Assassin's Trophy, though, so we can potentially get the Mistcloaked Herald off the battlefield. And it looks like our opponent... This is interesting now. Our opponent has missed a land drop. So we could Assassin's Trophy right here. Or we can play Jadelight Ranger and then try to kill it next turn with Ravenous Chupacabra. Or Vraska. Yeah. Pretty tough call. We're giving our opponent an additional card by not killing it right away. Let's roll the dice, though. Our opponent's stuck on one land. And our hand is good. I mean, we're in a pretty good spot here. Carnage Tyrant. I don't think we're looking for it right now, but we'll take that Findbroker. Can do some nasty things with it potentially. So our opponent is gonna get this additional hit in. Okay, well, since they played another Mistcloaked Herald, we just want to play out the Ravenous Chupacabra. Because we don't want our Vraska to go down to only one loyalty and then just get killed off by the Mistcloaked Herald. But the game is looking quite good for us, and now the question is if our opponent is straight up mono blue, which there's a good chance that they are. Although technically it could also still be blue-green Merfolk. But we do have to be thinking about potential flash creatures our opponent could have. That being said, Merfolk Trickster isn't that worrisome. I'm going to offer this trade, see if our opponent bites. And now the game is pretty much over because we can get our Vraska down, kill off that only creature that our opponent has. And they know that we also have this Findbroker in hand to be able to get back basically whatever we want to. Okay, so here's a Silvergull Adept. So we do see that Merfolk synergy coming into play, but it's just way, way too late. So, sideboarding here. Generally, we want removal. And we want a lot of removal in these types of matchups. So, like, Deadweight. Golden Demise is a possibility. We are going to be on the draw, which means it loses a little bit of its value. Plague Mirror. I think we're okay with cutting our Carnage Tyrants. Plaguecrafter is a removal spell we can go for. don't think we want Vraska's Contempt. It's a little bit slow. Wild Growth Walker can be good against these aggressive ducks. Yeah, I don't think we need the Golden Demises. They do kill our own creatures, which can be pretty awkward. I'm going to take out the Plaguecrafters. They're just not the removal that we're really looking for. This seems fine, not perfect. We're hoping that our opponent doesn't have a really good explosive type of draw. This hand has some issues with it. Two of the same Planeswalkers, not great. We also don't have any Explorer to go along with the Wild Growth Walker. I think we just mulligan this. This is actually a little bit better. We have, yeah, a little bit more going on. I think I'm going to top that Plague Mare. Hopefully our opponent has some 1 toughness creatures that we can get rid of with it. Speak of the devil. Mistcloaked Herald is back in business for our opponent. Yeah, that's brutal. We don't have the removal this time. And our opponent has a land, and they're on the play, and we don't have a Llanowar Elves. So this situation is much worse than in the last game. We could draw something like an Assassin's Trophy, but the longer that Mistcloaked Herald stays in play, the tougher things become. We don't really want that Branchwalker. The Vraska is likely going to be too slow for what we were looking for, but it is there and something we have access to. And yeah, the Plague Mare just isn't set up well on this exact board. So, I passed the turn. Not what we wanted. We can hope that our opponent does not have any counter magic. Which, there's a decent chance that they do have the counter magic. But we have to try to get the Mistcloaked Herald off the battlefield. Alright, well, we can get in with the Branchwalker, but I'm just not going to do that. Let's try to land this Ravenous Chupacabra. And it's going to get countered. Yep, there's the Wizard's Retort. So our opponent just kind of has the goods. And it's just really frustrating to be playing against a blue deck with counter magic that is drawing 2 cards a turn when you're only drawing 1. It just doesn't really feel good at all. Siren Storm Tamer can protect. it can protect that Mistcloaked Herald. So I'm going to try for the Plague Mare to get rid of that and the other Mistcloaked Herald. Okay, so it's entering play. That's the first step. And, yep, that you cannot counter. Should we attack here? Not sure, but I'm going to, because we do have this Wild Growth Walker as a follow-up play. Our opponent certainly could have another Merfolk Trickster, though. I mean, our hope is that our opponent just has a ton of land. Curious Obsession and Sleep. Okay, well that's rough because our opponent can get in for 5, but we can at least likely get the Mistcloaked Herald off the board. With our Vraska, we go down to 4. And our opponent still has 4 cards in hand. Oh, there's a Spell Pierce. That's, well, we didn't. If we had another land, that would be nice, but we didn't. And so our opponent just has a lethal attack. So on the play, we certainly have some reasonable considerations. Taking out a Findbroker could be fine. The Plaguecrafters, are okay. The Golden Demises are okay. Wild Growth Walker is also fine, but not anything crazy. I think on the play we can afford to take out the Wild Growth Walker. Vivian Reed is pretty good as a card advantage engine. So I think we do want her. I'm just going to run with this. We're hoping to once again have a Llanowar Elves draw, but if not, just have some early interaction. And there is the Llanowar Elves. We actually have a lot of early stuff in this hand, so this is just very different from our last hand. And sometimes you just draw a different half of your deck in different games. This one has a bunch of removal and no top end. So we're really looking for like a Planeswalker. Even something like a Jade Light Ranger would be good. So we do have a bit of a decision if we want to kill the Mistcloaked Herald right now. Which we could do. We could also wait for something like a Curious Obsession to enchant it. I think I'm going to take 2 here and just go for this deadweight. That allows us to get rid of the Mistcloaked Herald and we still have 2 removal spells. So, you know, we're not waiting for that 2-for-1 potential, but still not a bad spot that we're able to get those creatures that our opponent has off the battlefield. So our opponent could have a Merfolk Trickster here. In fact, they do have a Merfolk Trickster. So I think we want to just hold up this cast down, which means not getting the Overgrown Tomb into play right away. But I want to just kind of see what our opponent does. And now I think end of turn we can go for the cast down and just see if our opponent wants to fight over this. Looks like the answer is no. Okay, that was pretty good. We did find a Jade Light Ranger. But we are worried about potential counter magic that our opponent could have. Well, I like attacking with 1 Llanowar Elf here. And if our opponent's not doing anything, we can suspect that they have a counterspell, which makes me just not want to play this Jade Light Ranger. It's possible that they have a flash creature, but I think more likely it's Wizard's Retort here. And so once again, we have this choice of whether we want to run out a Jade Light Ranger. I guess we just let it get Wizard's Retorted and hope to draw something. Yep. So as expected, our opponent did have the Wizard's Retort to counter it. And now is going to go ahead and tap out for Tempest Djinn. Well, let's try to Assassin's Trophy it, see if our opponent wants to sacrifice their Siren Storm Tamer. And now we're just kind of hoping to draw something, to be honest. If we draw a Planeswalker, it would be amazing here. And, well, there's exactly the card we wanted. Just right at the perfect time. We get that Tempest Djinn off the battlefield and have this Planeswalker sitting in play, which the mono blue deck, once the Planeswalkers get in play, it's pretty tough to actually get them out of play. And this is just a hard cast Silvergill Adept. Okay, no merfolks around, I guess. And the hits do keep coming with the Jade Light Ranger. Into another one. I'm going to bin that one, but keep that Ravenous Chupacabra. Think we're fine with trading a Llanowar Elf for a Silvergill Adept if our opponent wants to do that. And now Vraska just starts ticking up and taking over. Okay, another Tempest Djinn. And a mirror. Okay, so that's actually... Well, we have this Ravenous Chupacabra, though, so unfortunately for our opponent, we can just answer these Tempest Djinns. Chupacabra, kill one. Vraska, kill the other one. And now crunch in for 7, and we have it next turn. So that's gonna do it. Alright, let's see what we got with our opener. Yep. No questions asked about this one. We have a Llanowar Elves, so normally when you have an Elves, you have lands, you have spells. No questions are needed. We don't have the late game payoff stuff yet. Don't be fooled. We both have Llanowar Elves in play, despite the additions. Ooh, there's a spicy card. So I don't think we want to trade, or I also don't think we want that cast down, because we can potentially just land the mini Vraska, the Vraska Golgari Queen next turn and eat one of our opponent's creatures, although then we potentially could leave ourselves vulnerable to... Okay, so here's an Isareth the Awakener. Not a card you see in all of these Golgari lists, for sure. Well, I like making the attack here with the Branchwalker, because we would really like our opponent to trade, and we'll see if our opponent does oblige or not. Okay, so yeah, the reason why we wanted the trade is now we can make that play of getting the Vraska onto the board and killing our opponent's only creature, and I think that was a pretty big mistake on our opponent's part, because you have to be thinking about why we were offering that trade and what it could lead to. Now we do have to worry about this card a little bit. In fact, we're going to have to kill it with our Assassin's Trophy that we do have access to. But first, let's go ahead and play the Merfolk Branchwalker. There's another Vraska, which could be useful, but I think we just put it in the graveyard because we have the Findbroker to get back permanents if we want to. And do we want to sacrifice one of our permanents? That's kind of a pretty big question. I'm gonna get rid of this Merfolk Branchwalker. It's gonna let us just kind of dig through our deck. And as you can see with these Findbrokers, we do have a card advantage engine lined up. But, you know, this game is far from over. We did have to kind of 2-for-1 ourselves with that Assassin's Trophy, and now our opponent could land a big threat, and that is really annoying. Not at all what we wanted to see. Ugh. Hate to see it. Hate to see it. Doom Whisperer, an incredibly powerful card. And we may, in fact, lose our Vraska at this point. Well, we can try to find a removal spell off the top. So, float a mana, use it. Well. Sometimes it just happens like that. Now, we're giving our opponent multiple lands off these Assassin's Trophies. I mean, These removal spells aren't free. They come at a very real cost. But we still are able to keep our Vraska in play. And that's big. So we want to get something back. I'm just going to get back a Merfolk Branchwalker to kind of use as fodder for our Vraska. As a permanent we can sacrifice. We can potentially get some value off of. Greenspore Shaman. Okay. That's not as scary as some of the other cards our opponent has played up to this point. And it does look like our opponent's got this graveyard engine going. And there's the Izoni. So now we see Izoni is a payoff, and it looks like this Findbroker is likely to bring back Izoni. And that is a very real problem and mirror breaker. So, yeah. Definitely worried about this situation. In fact, we don't really want to be putting more creatures in our opponent's graveyard. Here's a district guide. I mean, it's not bad. Not a bad card here. I think we just leave it on top. Because of the Izoni, we don't really want to... to be killing our opponent's creatures. Yep, I'm just going to sacrifice this Branchwalker again. And play out the District Guide from our hand. District Guide is a built-in 2-for-1. We do care about the lands that it's giving us. I'm expecting Izoni, so our opponent has 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Wow, yeah, so our opponent's milled 10 creatures. Interesting that they're not just immediately playing it here. Getting back a Ravenous Chupacabra. Looks like choosing to fight a little bit of a different way this game. Hard to say if it's going to work out. But it does give our opponent some good attacks on our Vraska. And we can block with the District Guide. I don't think I'm going to, though. We'll just let our Vraska go down to 1. But this does look, admittedly, very bad for us. Let's go ahead and sacrifice our District Guide for a card. Okay, we found Big Vraska, which is one of our better draws. We know what that one card our opponent has in hand is. So I think we play out Vraska Relic Seeker, because, I mean, honestly, what else are we going to do in this situation? And wait for this never-ending swarm of tokens to hit the battlefield. Once again, we don't really want to be trading off our creatures. So let's see where these attacks are going. It looks like they're all going at Vraska Relic Seeker. Well, we don't really want to let it die. So I am going to make some blocks. We might as well get rid of the 3/1 here. And then I mean, I guess we can get rid of the Ravenous Chupacabra. Sure. We'll just let Vraska go down to 1 here. Am I missing something? I could have sworn. Yeah, I believe our opponent does have that Izoni in play. I mean, that they got back from their graveyard. So, but they didn't play it. If that's the case, I just don't understand that. But could be missing something. So we're just going to go ahead and proceed as best we can, given the circumstances. So we want to play out the Findbroker. We're also interested in plussing our small Vraska. The question is, what do we want to sacrifice? We can also play the Ravenous Chupacabra. I think I'm going to sacrifice the Pirate. Just give us some more information. So there's a land. So we have a Planeswalker on 5 and a Planeswalker on 3. Well, we can play a Findbroker and just get back a Findbroker. And then play out our Llanowar Elves, which we likely are going to want to have on chump block duty. So our opponent is attacking our big Vraska, which is kind of what we expected. And we'll just go ahead and continue blocking it. Okay, and here's Izoni. Not sure why our opponent waited a turn to cast it, but it is on the battlefield now, and it's extremely good. It's going to be tough to come back from this. Well, let's go ahead and start by getting Izoni off the battlefield with our Ravenous Chupacabra, which is, of course, going to prompt this response from our opponent. And we can go ahead and sack a land, I think, at this point pretty safely. And we just kind of are forced to play out this Findbroker. I think we just need more threats on the table in terms of what to get back. I'll get another small Vraska back because, well, we don't have any great targets for the Findbroker in our graveyard at the moment. And just prepare ourselves to block what we can. Our opponent does have 12 creatures in play and 2 cards in hand. And we can prepare for a pretty substantial attack. I'd be pretty surprised if our opponent only attacked with those Findbrokers. Yeah, it looks like our opponent is going to line up at least some of the insects, if not just all of them. And we'll see how these attacks are, where these creatures are going. It looks like the majority of them are just going to go after our big Vraska. And then we have some going after the small Vraska. So it looks like our opponent has attacked with enough to kill Vraska Relic Seeker. So, given that's the case, we want to block the insects that are going after the small Vraska. And then we kind of want to kill off one of these Findbrokers if we can. So I'm going to put 2 Findbrokers there. And we'll go with this. We're just kind of assuming that our opponent has nothing in hand, by the way. Because we cannot beat very much here. We're struggling to cope with what's on the board. And there's a Doom Whisperer, which is a very real problem. Well, I like starting with the Jadelight Ranger to kind of set up our draw once we do tick Vraska up, so we can potentially find a removal spell. Don't think we want another Jadelight Ranger. So in terms of what to sacrifice, I'm just going to go ahead and sacrifice a land. Yeah, not at all what we were looking for in terms of those draws. Well, we don't have good attacks either because our opponent has this Doom Whisperer. What we can do is attack with our Menace creature because, well, it has Menace and our opponent only has that one blocker in play. But okay, so here's going to be some Doom Whisperer activations. Interesting. I'm interested to see how far our opponent's willing to go on those activations, and it does feel like this version of the black-green deck is kind of built for this exact, like our opponent's version is built for this exact matchup. It's kind of how it feels. I'm a bit surprised by attacking with more than the Doom Whisperer, but I guess our opponent wants to ensure that they kill our Vraska, but they do know, or at least they should know, that we have that other one in hand as our backup. So we get to munch on 4 of these insects, which helps clear off the battlefield. So we kill some creatures. Opponent's got that one card in hand that oh, there's a fine. That's going to return 2 copies of Izoni from the graveyard to our opponent's hand. I just don't think we can beat that. I'm just going to concede. Yeah. I don't think our opponent played this game that well, to be honest, but we're just not beating that. So we'll go to the sideboard. And, well, we definitely want the Plague Mare. Plague Mare can give our opponent's creatures -1/-1, so it can wipe away all of those insects. We don't want Plaguecrafter, on the other hand. Golden Demise is another potential answer that we probably actually just have to board in. It's not great, but it's another answer to those Izoni tokens. And then Deathgorge Scavenger is another answer to those creatures in the graveyard. This isn't a matchup where we want cast down. Carnage Tyrant's just a big dude, which can be pretty good. I don't think we want the Eldest Reborn because, as we saw, our opponent has a lot of little creatures. Vivian Reed seems better. So, yeah, this is what I am looking at. Assassin's Trophy also isn't great in this particular matchup. I mean, it kills cards like the Doom Whisperer, as we saw, which can be can be important. I'll go with one Vraska's Contempt. Exiling the creatures can be pretty relevant. Okay, I mean, we're going to keep... It's kind of... This matchup is almost more about our opponent's draw than ours. Like, if their deck does what they want it to do, unfortunately, it's pretty tough for us to counter it. That being said, there's definitely merits to not having, you know, the Izoni, the Doom Whisperer plan. Ours is kind of just like a more well-rounded black-green deck, while theirs is kind of built specifically for this type of matchup. So it looks like we're just going to be trading some creatures in the early turns. Going to go ahead and swing in with the Merfolk Branchwalker. Okay, well that was completely my fault there. For some reason I just thought that Jade Light Ranger was a 3/2. That's pretty awkward. Sorry guys, that was just a blunder on my part. Everyone makes them, but I certainly don't like to. Sure, we'll keep this Llanowar Elves on top. Well, we're down a 2/1 Merfolk Branchwalker now. So, yeah, just kind of swung in there. Sometimes we all make those sorts of blunders. So this time it's actually just a real trade. Jade Light for Jade Light. Our opponent's going to be milling a lot of stuff into their graveyard. As we see, there's an Izoni, a Findbroker, and once again, we're just very weak to Izoni if our opponent does cast it, which we're praying that card just doesn't hit the battlefield in this particular matchup. But our opponent's going to want to just go ahead and trade off as many creatures as they possibly can. And that's kind of what our deck is supposed to want to do anyways, and we just really are just going to go ahead and play this game, and because there's not really much we can do to prevent it. And we have to get our Planeswalkers down at some point in order to try to win the game. Doom Whisperer is a card that we can answer, as Vivian Reed is able to destroy a creature with flying. So we can answer it. But with that being said, our opponent's going to be able to set up their draw. And that is very bad news because the chances of them going land plus Izoni are very high. Or at minimum playing like a Golgari Findbroker to get something back from the graveyard. Or just playing another Doom Whisperer. That seems good as well. So we're going to hope to find a Chupacabra here. Found a Findbroker and a Llanowar Elves. Okay, well. We would love to have a big Vraska. We do have a little one, though, which we can use, and I think we want to use to get rid of our opponent's Llanowar Elves, because we want to try to knock our opponent off of their mana production. And specifically keep our opponent off 6 mana. So we can expect the Vivian Reed to go down on this attack, and that is what's going to happen. Findbroker is probably going to get back. Okay, it's going to get back Doom Whisper. That's still pretty scary. Well, we're going to play the card that we can play, which is the Findbroker. And I think we want to get back that Vivian Reed, as it can, even though it's slow, it can try to deal with these Doom Whisperers that our opponent's got. But this activation of Doom Whisperer just means that our opponent is going to be drawing whatever they want to, almost. And without a lot of pressure in play, the life loss isn't as effective as we'd like it to be. So this Doom Whisperer is going to take out our Vraska. Alright, well, I guess we just kill one of the Doom Whisperers. I mean, what else are we going to do here? So we do that. We have this Death Gorge Scavenger, which we can use to kind of try to disrupt the graveyard a little bit. But now our opponent has the dreaded 6th land, which may mean the one thing that we pretty much can't beat. The one card that we're very afraid of coming down. Could come down this turn. But it looks like our opponent's going to get back Izoni and Doom Whisperer with that find, which is still very worrisome. Extremely worrisome, in fact. And here's another Findbroker. For a Findbroker. Yep, this is not going well. I'm not sure that we even have outs at this point, but we did draw a Vivian Reed, so we will go ahead and shoot down this Doom Whisperer because that's what we can do. And we can go ahead and play out the Death Gorge Scavenger as well. Just try to munch away as many creatures as we possibly can. It's not easy to do that, though. And so now we need to draw one of our token sweepers that we did board in for this exact situation. And here are going to be some attacks, which these attacks are pretty bad for us, to be honest, but we're just going to save our Vivian Reed. And it comes at the expense of our Death Gorge Scavenger. We found a Chupacabra. So we can play that and get rid of this Izoni. But unfortunately, we know that our opponent has another Findbroker in hand. And so that's a real problem. That can either get back a Findbroker or an Izoni. Either one is bad news. And these insects can now dispatch the Vivian Reed, which is kind of the best card we have on the table. It's our only real source of card advantage. Well, let's go ahead and kill some of these tokens. And see what our draw step is. There's an Assassin's Trophy, so our opponent now has a removal in case we do find another Planeswalker. Which we did. Well, gonna cast it. We get to cast some things, which is kind of nice. But we are hellbent at this point. Just gonna hold back, try to protect our Vraska. But our opponent's correctly going to use that Assassin's Trophy to get rid of it. And so that's just a clean answer to our Planeswalker. Now this seems like a bit of a weird attack to me. Okay, our opponent's going to get aggressive. So I think at this point we just have to play to the potential to draw a sweeper. One of our ways to deal with the Izoni if it does come down again, which it will come down again. So we're just not going to care about filling up our opponent's graveyard that much and just make the necessary blocks. But here's the Doom Whisperer. And just a land. Yep. Exactly what we didn't want. Our opponent's going down somewhat low on life, which is a little surprising. So the Doom Whisperer is just going to come in alongside Findbroker. Well, we'll just make the obvious block. Looks like our opponent's not going to deploy the Izoni. That is interesting. Sure, we'll keep this Vraska on top. I'm not sure what it's actually going to do for us. There's some very small chance that we could draw Golden Demise and like wipe these insects away and find a win that way. But that seems pretty unlikely. Especially now. Those insects have a way of multiplying, and even if we do draw the Golden Demise, it won't be enough, so yep, I'm just going to concede here. That's going to be the match. Let's see what we have here. Yes, we have a turn 2 G-Light Razor into a Vraska. That seems good. So let's just hope our opponent doesn't kill our elves, of course. Island could mean the mono blue deck again, could be some sort of control variant. Many of the control decks, though, are multiple colors, so it's interesting that our opponent's actually starting on basic Island. Assassin's Trophy, huh? Well, I think I'll bin that. Hopefully that doesn't hurt us too badly. Blue-red, okay. Well, I think we want to just run out this Vraska. And do we want to sacrifice... Do we want to sacrifice anything? That's a big question. I don't think I will right this turn. Probably will next turn. But in these two colors, it's hard to actually get rid of our Planeswalker. Fight with fire, sure. I'm going to keep that Merfolk Branchwalker where it is. Continue to tick up Vraska. Yeah. I think I'll sacrifice this Jade Light Ranger. Feel like a card may be worth more than a 3/2, but it's pretty close. Ooh, Primal Amulet. That is a cool card. A sweet one. Now we are actually getting close. Very close to ultimating our Vraska. The Eldest Reborn. Based on what our opponents played, I don't think we want it. Yeah. I think we keep our creatures in play just because of how close we are to the ultimate of Vraska. Fight with fire. I actually think we want to just go ahead and ultimate our Vraska here. It could just win us the game, but if not, we have this backup Vraska. Okay, so our opponent does have that removal spell there. Ooh, a big Vraska. Yeah, I think we'll keep that one. This would be a good time for our opponent to play a Chain Whirler, but okay. Looks like it's going to be a concession. So Primal Amulet, huh? So this spell-based combo deck is what our opponent's on. So we're going to want our Duresses. We may want this Argyll's Bloodfast. Vivian Reed is a card that, yep, it can deal with artifacts. Possibly this Death Gorge Scavenger. And the Carnage Tyrant. Cards we doesn't seem like we want would be the removal stuff. So like Cast Downs, Plaguecrafter. Now I don't know what creatures our opponent might have. The Eldest Reborn also doesn't seem very good in the matchup. So, yeah, I think we'll just go ahead and go with this. We didn't see any creatures at all in the first game. So it's possible that our opponent just had 0 creatures in their deck and they're just trying to win with cards like Fight with Fire. We have the Assassin's Trophy, which is always a card you can just keep in. Because it's a removal spell that answers Planeswalkers or the artifact like we saw in the Primal Amulet. Vivian Reed is also very versatile. And even if our opponent isn't winning with actual creatures, they do need to get some non-land permanents out there onto the battlefield to win. So technically it's possible to just go up to 9 lands and start throwing Fight with Fires, but that just seems extremely unlikely without a lot of other cards helping that plan. So we kept a hand with 2 Assassin's Trophies and drew a third one. So that's a little bit more than what we wanted, but we do have this Explore creature. Got plenty of time. But optimally, we'd like to get a Planeswalker out like we did in the last game. And we found one. I think I will top the Vivian Reed. We're 2 lands away from it, which is the unfortunate part. But we have this Branchwalker, so hopefully our plan can be to get it in play onto turn 5. On turn 5. It's possible, though, that our opponent does have some counter magic in their deck, so that's also something we have to worry about. Okay, found a land, so that's nice. No Primal Amulet on turn 4. We drew Duress, so gonna cast that, but I would rather just attack first in case our opponent has removal and is wondering, hey, should I use this removal spell? It's possible we see a card like Chemister's Insight to draw some cards, which, okay, it's going to be just a straight Ionize counterspell. And there's the Amulet. I think we want to just go ahead and get rid of it. Let's do that. I mean, we could wait to try to draw the land for the Vivian Reed. Which we did draw, so... But that being said, like, we can just tick Vivian Reed up. Like, we don't have to tick it down to try to get rid of that Primal Amulet. We're happy with this. We're hoping it enters the battlefield, and it does. Get a Jade Light Ranger. That seems pretty good. And now our opponent's in some some real trouble. They may be looking to get up to 9 lands for Fight with Fire to try to get multiple cards of ours off the battlefield. Although this is an explosion for 3. That's interesting. So that's going to draw our opponent some more gas. But on the flip side, we can just continue to use this Vivian Reed, and we can get either this land or this Golgari Findbroker. Yeah, gonna go with the Findbroker. I think there's a decent chance we can explore into another land here, which we did. And so now the question is, do we want to play the Findbroker or play the Jade Light Ranger? And the Findbroker is the more mana efficient play. So I think I'm just going to do that one. And the Branchwalker seemed pretty good, so I'll just get a Branchwalker back. Just go full-on Branchwalker beats. So we're 1 off from the Vivian Reed emblem. Not sure that's going to end up being relevant, though. Nimizit. Yep, that's a card, but we actually have Vivian Reed in play, which can shoot down Nimizit and potentially... Well, this Opt is going to be able to draw our opponent 2 cards, so... That means that they can get rid of our 2 Branchwalkers. And so we don't have to minus Vivian Reed here, but we could Assassin's Trophy, but I think we're supposed to minus the Vivian. I mean, yeah. I mean, if we play the Assassin's Trophy, it would mean another card for our opponents. And it would mean another land. So, Fight with Fire could be pretty good here, if that's what our opponent's plan is. I think we just hold on to this Findbroker and play out this Branchwalker. Okay, well, our opponent's tapping a lot of mana, so that probably does mean Fight with Fire. That was pretty good. Luckily, we still have this Findbroker in play. In our hand, rather. So we can play that, get back our other Findbroker. So now we have 2 Findbrokers. Play this one. And this one's going to get back the Vivian Reed. So now our opponent almost needs either another Fight with Fire or multiple removal spells to kill both of these Findbrokers. Primal Amulet. Into and Anticipate. Okay, so our opponent's really just trying to storm off this turn almost. But it's not going to be easy. So, let's see. Primal Amulet. can flip and then produce. Yeah, this could be bad for us. But our opponent needs one more spell here to flip the Amulet, right? And then they can potentially use a removal spell to get rid of both of our creatures. And that's what it looks like is our opponent's plan. This was a pretty absurd turn. Hats off to our opponent for playing. I didn't expect our opponent to be able to play the Amulet and cast 4 spells and then cast a removal spell on top of that and transform that Amulet, and that's exactly what happened. Found quite a good card here in a Golgari Findbroker, so we're definitely casting that one. We could also go with Vivian Reed or just play out the Findbroker. I think I'll just go with Vivian Reed. And hope that this wave of threats is going to be good enough. Now, I believe if our opponent has another fight with fire, they can just, like, kill us, right? Because it copies the kick. Or an explosion. Is that good enough? Tapping 12. Yeah, so maybe if that's the case, if explosion kills us, then maybe we shouldn't have played the Vivian Reed, but... Or, sorry, because the reason why I say that is we shocked off the Overgrown Tome. So, but yeah, so this is for 8, which means that our opponent gets to copy it and just kill us. That's pretty absurd. Woo. Was not expecting that at all. Thought we had it. So yeah, feels bad to sit here with a bunch of Assassin's Trophies in hand. Probably should have had mana up that turn when our opponent just like went off, basically. I don't think that our sideboard plan is bad. I think we should probably actually just run this back. But ooh, that felt bad. But sometimes you just have to clap your hands and be like, we are impressed. Like, you did it. You did what your deck is supposed to do in a situation where we didn't, or at least I didn't think that it was possible to do that. Alright, so hopefully it'll be more like game 1 and less like game 2, but this hand is bad. We just have to mulligan this. I like this one much better. Woodland Cemetery does help enable us casting our Vivian Reed, but I think we bottom that. Like, we're pretty likely to draw more lands, even bottoming 1. And then if we draw an Explorer creature, it's kind of better than a land. So that's my reasoning. Oh, another Vivian Reed. We only have 2 in the deck, too. Well, we're definitely hoping that our opponent doesn't kill our Llanowar Elves. There's a Branch Walker. That is one of the cards we were hoping to see. I don't think our opponent could have Syncopate in this deck, so I'm just gonna run it out. Yeah, radical ideas. And now we have lined up a Vivian Reed. Our opponent could have one of those ionizes, those counter spells, but let's go ahead and cast it. No counter, no counter, no counter. Well, our opponent's not immediately countering it. This could be like an opt, but the fact that this is a permanent that can deal with a primal amulet. Oh, never mind. Our opponent's kind of slow rolled us there. So, well, we attack. And we still have another Vivian Reed, so that is the good news here. And I'm just going to cast it, hope that our opponent doesn't have another counterspell. There's Negate. Negate's a pretty strong card. Pitching a land for that radical idea. And our opponents essentially just become the control deck in this matchup. There's a Bloodfast. That's pretty sweet. Well, I'm going to attempt to cast that. And it does resolve. Let's also cast this Findbroker. Okay, Chemist's Insight. So our opponent has a lot of this jumpstart stuff. But now we just have another good threat and a removal spell. So once again, we've put ourselves in a reasonable spot. We're not out of the woods by any means. Like, our opponent has 7 cards in hand. We know about the Primal Amulet stuff. So, like, we're very much in danger here. They can go through a huge portion of their deck with this card draw, and then we know about removal spells, and then Fight with Fires. There's a Lava Coil. Okay, that's a removal spell we hadn't seen yet, but it does make sense that it is in our opponent's deck. And now we have to wonder if there could be a negate in our future for this Vivian Reed. But I just think we have to play it, right? Like, they have the negate, but like, yeah, it's just, yeah. Okay, sweet. So having that resolve is big. I'm just gonna take a Branch Walker because we want to save our green mana potentially, depending on what we draw, and we have this Bloodfast, so like, it's kind of worth more to us than a Jade Light Ranger at the moment. We have to be worried about Fight with Fire. Our opponent's 2 lands away from that. So this may end up being a very close game. Also, there's those explosions as well. Okay, I think we just take a second Branch Walker. We might as well... I think we can activate... Well, no, let's just play out our Branch Walkers. There's one land. Counterspell, sure. I think the safest thing is just to hold up the Assassin's Trophy in case of a big spell from our opponent. There's Primal Amulet. But only 2 cards in our opponent's hand. So I don't think we need to just immediately snap off the Assassin's Trophy. I'm going to draw a card. We can actually use Vivian Reed to get rid of the Amulet, which I think is just better. That way we're not giving our opponent an extra land. We do still have to be a little bit worried about some of the potential cards our opponent could play. Like a Fight with Fire. We definitely want to plus our Vraska. I'm just going to sack one of these swamps. Do we want to deploy the Jadelight Ranger also? Our opponent's on 8 lands right now. Yeah, I think we should. We're tapping out again, which is risky. Okay. Well, we want the duress. Unfortunately, though, we can't cast it this turn. So we're just gonna cross our fingers that this particular turn isn't that bad for us. And that's a lot of mana our opponent's tapping. So it's probably gonna be a Fight with Fire to kill off a lot of our stuff. But we can duress our opponent, take this Ionize, so our opponent's only on a land. And that is good news. There's a Jadelight Ranger, so this is potentially a lethal threat that we can put on the battlefield. And I don't think we want the duress because our opponent's now in top deck mode. Let's activate. Sure, we'll activate the Bloodfast once. We have a 3/2. 3/2 could very easily just get the job done. What's this, a radical idea? Yeah, okay. That was actually already in our opponent's graveyard, so... Fiery Cannonade. I wasn't expecting that, or else I would have made the Jadelight Ranger into a 4/3 creature. Well, this is a little bit annoying. I think we just draw cards with this Bloodfest to try to find something. We found a Carnage Tyrant. Wow! That's like the best thing we possibly could have found. That's insane. So now our opponent's just like cold to this Carnage Tyrant. And I think, yep, that is going to be the match. See what we have here. Okay, I think we can keep this. Couple explore threats. Some removal. Yeah, checks most of the boxes for us, plus the Vraska. Sacred Foundry, so it's probably some sort of red-white aggro deck. But without a 1-drop, I would guess. Could still be like a Jeskai control deck. No, it looks like straight red-white. Yeah, there's a Danto Vanguard. Pretty difficult threat to actually kill. So that's annoying. I think we go Jade Light Ranger because it has the potential to be a bigger creature. Do we want a Llanowar Elves? Sure. Seems like about average for a draw step, but like still fine. Like we can use it as a chump blocker or as Vraska fodder. And it just allows us to like double spell if we want to. Like we can play District Guide and Llanowar Elves. So that's pretty nice. Ooh, History of Benalia. That one is annoying. And as expected, that Vanguard is going to go ahead and hit us. Well, I think we just get aggressive with this Vraska. And this is very aggressive, I will say that, but let's just get rid of this knight. And the gamble here is that if we attack with the Jade Light, our opponent doesn't immediately kill our Branch Walker. We could also leave the Jade Light back, but I think I'm gonna attack because the life points do really matter, especially when your opponent has to pay 4 life just to keep to give their creature indestructible. And it looks like no immediate removal, so we can make this block on the Adanto Vanguard. And so now our opponent's down to 12. So that worked out reasonably well, actually. Another history, huh? Well, I think we want to continue to get in there with the Jade Light. I don't expect our opponent to block. And what we can do is we can go District Guide plus Cast Down. Or we can go with the Llanowar Elves plan as well. Like, we do want to cast our Cast Down. The Danto Vanguard is not a knight. We kind of want to get a little bit more value out of the Vraska before it dies. But the prospect of getting this district guide onto the battlefield is also pretty nice. I think I'm just going to go for that. And we can just sacrifice a land. Sacrifice a forest. So this is when the history stuff starts being really annoying. So the knights just kind of continue to multiply. So all of the attacks are going at Vraska. So we could put Guide in front of Vanguard, but I think we just let Vraska die. Unfortunately, we feels inevitable. Okay, yeah, Flamewake Phoenix is pretty good. Well, let's pick off a knight. Unfortunately, Flamewake Phoenix is actually very good against Plaguecrafter specifically. Card that is in our hand. I think I'm just going to hold up the Assassin's Trophy. Yeah, the Plaguecrafter looks really bad against Flamewake Phoenix. Alright, so here, I think we can put a Llanowar Elves in front of the Vanguard. Probably put a Jade Light in front of a token. And do we want to Assassin's Trophy this? We'll let these trades happen. Go to 14. Ugh. Yeah, not what we wanted. Woodland Cemetery off the top. Well, I think we just have to play out this Plaguecrafter. If our opponent sacrifices the Phoenix, we just get rid of the egg. Doesn't feel... It feels almost like a 3-for-1 trade. In our opponent's favor here. And the fact that we've had to individually answer the knights and use multiple cards on our opponent's threats means that now we're sitting at in a similar board position, except our opponent just is way ahead on cards. I mean, our deck does have a few powerful top decks. Like, say we draw a Vraska Relic Seeker, something like that. That would be pretty nice. But unfortunately, if we break on this draw step, I think it's pretty much over. Alright, I think it's time for sideboard. This red-white aggro deck, it is powerful. It is a powerful beast. So in terms of the sideboard, I like Plague Mare. I think we want these golden demises as well. We're definitely going to take out Plaguecrafter. That was just the worst possible card we could have in that situation. Some of the bigger stuff can be good. I like Vraska's Contempt as a way to answer Rekindling Phoenix. Deadweight. Deadweight is fine. I think we can take out like cast downs for deadweights because these actually kill the Adanto Vanguard. I think that's alright. Between some of this other stuff, Wild Growth Walker, Scavenger, Vivian Reed. Yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of finding that configuration that works the best. The Assassin's Trophies, I think we want some amount. We do know about potential graveyard disruption from our opponent with those flyers that can exile our graveyard. Our opponent has a decent amount of flyers, so the Vivian Reeds seem fine to me. Probably better than the Eldest Reborn. Alright, well let's try this configuration. I'm not confident it's the best possible configuration in the matchup, but figuring out what to take out is kind of tough. I mean, this is reasonable. Like, it's a reasonable hand against most decks, especially being on the play. I mean, we don't have Llanowar Elves, but like turn 3 Jade Light, you can't really say no to. But we are hoping that these Jade Light Rangers do a lot for us, because besides them, Sand isn't doing too much. Now, that draw our opponent had last game was quite good, for what it's worth. Having multiple History of Benalias. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. Here's a shock, sure. So, do we want this Merfolk Branchwalker? That's a close one. I'm going to put it in the graveyard. Help us dig deeper into our library. Oh, wow. Our opponent's missing a land drop here. That is... well, that's good news for us. And we drew a Llanowar Elf, so I think because of that, we do want to play 2 spells in our turn. We'll see if our opponent kills this one. Yep. Kills our Jade Light. And drew 2 lands off of it. So we're officially flooded. We have the Findbroker, which is hopefully going to do us some good work. just going to get back a Jade Light Ranger with it. I wonder if our opponent has sideboarded into a more removal-heavy control sort of a strategy, based on what we've seen so far. Yeah, that's a toughie, tough one to deal with. We found a Plague Mare, so I think we would be happy to trade off the Findbroker. And it looks like our opponent is gonna accept that, because now we can play out the Plague Mare. And that's a nice way to get rid of that token. Do we want another Jade Light Ranger? I think so. I mean, we can use them to beat down. And if we ever have to cast the Golden Demise, we want a 3 toughness creature, although the Golden Demise, well, all of the cards in our hand are pretty bad right now. Well, we may need to use this Assassin's Trophy. In fact, we definitely will have to use this Assassin's Trophy because we need to be able to cast these Jade Light Rangers. We don't want the Golden Demise, I don't think. Deadweight, I guess we put that in the graveyard as well. Ooh. Well, we can just attack here with everything. I mean, it's not a great attack for us, but, like, I'm going to do it. Because this Resplendent Angel is a huge issue. And so if our opponent blocks like this, that is actually the exact block that we wanted. Probably was a mistake to block like that. Because now we get to get rid of the Elemental and the Angel, which the Angel would have just been pretty absurd here. Both cards were very annoying, in fact. Vance's Blasting Cannon. Okay. So yeah, our opponent did sideboard into a more controlling deck. Okay, well, that was a nice find. In a Findbroker. So Findbroker for Findbroker. And then Findbroker again. This one will get us... Actually, we may just want to get the Deadweight. Forgot about that being in the graveyard. Yeah, we'll get that. And that allows us to attack with the Jade Light. If our opponent blocks, we just Deadweight the token. Sweet. Okay, so now our opponent's just top decking. They found... Oh, Settle the Wreckage. Well, that's not useful off of Vance's Blasting Cannon. Just making sure that they can't cast it later on, which is true, they cannot. So, yeah, our opponent made a mistake letting that Resplendent Angel die. Oh, wow. They drew a Settle the Wreckage for turn? Oh my god, that's just absurd. Oh, wow. Because our opponent was Hellbent, right? I'm not missing anything, so they just had 2 Settles on top. That's just absurd. Yeah, that's just crazy. And we're just drawing all lands. Okay, well, Ixalan's Binding isn't going to be useful. But it looks like our opponent found some gas. Potentially. No? I mean, we don't have that many lands left in our deck, so hopefully we don't draw them. Branchwalker, not the most high impact play. And there's an Overgrown Tomb. We have not found a single Planeswalker this game. Our opponent there, yeah, just a Sacred Foundry exiled. Oh, well, that's good. So we can minus Vraska to get rid of the Vance's Blasting Cannon. That feels like the right play. So if our opponent doesn't get rid of the Vraska here, we actually are untap for the first time in this game in a pretty nice spot. Even with that Woodland Cemetery for a draw step. And I believe our opponent... Yep, our opponent conceded, okay. So, managed to win that one. That was a crazy back and forth game. So, the question is, will our opponent keep with that same plan? Because against that plan that our opponent was using, it seemed like the Deadweights and Golden Demises were not good. It's possible that our opponent goes back to those Adanto Vanguards, though, being that they're going to be on the play, which is kind of what I'm worried about. So, still don't think we want most of the sideboard stuff. The Eldest Reborn could be pretty good, I think. Like, yeah. I guess I'll cut a couple Branchwalkers. That seems weird, though, to cut Branchwalkers. Alright, we'll go with one Eldest Reborn. Our deck is still somewhat top-heavy, even though we didn't really draw most of our big stuff. Like last game, I don't think we saw a single Chupacabra, a single Vraska Golgari Queen, so it's just a weird draw. Yeah, this is like more typical. I think we do keep. But this is the type of hand where if our opponent plays an Adanto Vanguard on turn 2, or has that History of Benalia on turn 3, the threats are what we're the most worried about, not those shocks and Shivan Fires and all that stuff that our opponent had in the last game. Okay, no Vanguard. Okay, we actually drew the dead weight. Well, you know, the dead weight was actually decent for us last game, even though our opponent didn't play a whole lot of cheap threats. It still was able to effectively answer Rekindling Phoenix. And once again, our opponent's stumbling on lands, so this could be a quick game, which is good because we want to win. And Chupacabra, that's pretty good. It's a pretty good card. I think we just keep it. I mean, we could have graveyarded it because we can get it back with the Findbroker, but I'm just all about the value. If our opponent plays a creature, we just go kill it. And that qualifies as a creature. It's a creature-like threat. So I think this is a good time to play our Chupacabra. And we can't really ask for much more in a hand at this stage. We've got all of the tools we need to win the game. Our opponent, though, did find that land that they were looking for. So I think we just want to Vraska's Contempt away the Angel. I mean, we don't have to this turn. Let's see, the activated ability, it does cost 6. So we could wait, but by doing it, we're able to attack in with our Ravenous Chupacabra. Like, our opponent's pretty likely to have Rekindling Phoenix in hand, but they only have 1 red source. So I like being pretty aggressive with our attack. And now the History of Benalia has been completely answered by getting rid of those knights. Okay, Conclave Tribunal, that's not that scary. If we draw a land here and are able to get the Vraska down, instead we drew another Vraska. Well, we can, even if we find a land for next turn, I think it's going to be good. We don't want that Golden Demise. Because Vraska can destroy enchantments. So if we go kill your Tribunal, get the Jade Light, do some exploring. Watley, okay. Well, that's a card. There's a dinosaur. But unfortunately for our opponent, we have Vraska now. I think we want to get rid of the dinosaur and get rid of the Watley Warrior Poet. Because that card is just annoying. You don't want that on the battlefield. Splendid Angel. We can get rid of that with our Vraska. And play our second Vraska. So that seems like a pretty good play. Yeah, let's go with that. And I think we just get rid of the Remorseful Cleric, too. Our graveyard gets exiled, which makes this Findbroker a little bit worse, but we can just put this Llanowar Elves on the battlefield. And that gives us 3 lethal threats. So, I mean, our opponent could have a Settle the Wreckage. So if our opponent just passes the turn, we can... Okay, but it looks like it's just going to be a concession, so... Sweet.